Good morning and a warm welcome to you wherever you're tuned in from. Today, as usual, is time for our Thursday conversations. And our topic today is going to be very interesting, but because it's something we are taught about usually a lot in church circles about forgiveness, not letting the sun go down on our anger. And today we are going to delve into it a bit deeper and go and look at it from a have a psychological point of view as well about it. And to help us tackle this topic is none other than Jabere Murioki. Jabere is also a psychologist, he's a trainer, and he's also the founder of Purpose Wellness and Counseling Center.
Purpose Counseling and Wellness Center.
Called Perspective. Karibu sana, Jabere.
Asante.
Jabere, can you hear me? Karibu.
Yes, I said Asante. It keeps unakuja
Karibu,
unapotea.
karibu.
Asante. Asante Wambui. Unanisikia?
Eh, eh. Nakusikia vizuri sana.
Okay, asante.
Tuendelee.
Okay, so you're done with the introduction? Wambui, you're done with the introduction? Wambui, you're done with the introduction. I move on.
Hi, I think Wambo is having some technical issues. Maybe maybe you can just continue as they sort out their internet.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just like Wamboya said, good morning, viewers and my listeners.
Yes,
My name.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Wamboy. As Wamboya said, my name is Sabera Murioki, and I am a counseling psychologist. My area is counseling, child and adolescent counseling, marriage and family therapy, trauma counseling, and generally, I am into consultation. Yes, like she said, our topic today will be overcoming or dealing with emotional pain and bitterness. And as we start, I would want to encourage everyone who is listening and watching that it is okay for you and me not to be okay. We are facing this topic today so that we can address this issue of emotional pain. And why am I saying that it is okay not to be okay? Because pain is an internal thing that you or me cannot claim not to have. So it is okay not to be okay. And it is okay not to say that you are feeling it, but it is very okay to seek for help. It is okay also to go and look for someone that you can share with. You do not have to wait until the time when the pain has pushed you to its lowest for you to be
Hello, just go ahead.
So I will want to ask this simple question. What comes into your mind when you hear this word emotional pain and bitterness? I will start by explaining what is or what I defined as emotional pain. This is a psychological pain. It can also be called mental pain, and it is an unpleasant feeling of the psychological or the mental state. This pain is non physical. So when we talk of emotional pain, we talk of pain that is occurring in our mind. When we talk of pain, which is emotional, it is a hurt, Hurt, that has occurred to you or to me that I cannot be able to touch. And when this pain has occurred, it grows to a point that it brings in bitterness. So, when we talk generally of emotional pain, we are talking of the feeling of brokenness. This feeling of brokenness can be loss of self, experiences that you have gone through, disconnections that you have suffered, and when this is happening to you, the pain is so much that you cannot touch or someone else cannot be able to walk or tell or feel how it is. How does emotional pain feel like? It is a state of your mind running. Sometimes you may feel dizzy. You may have problems of sleeping. You may have difficulties in swallowing. You lack appetite. You become restless. You start sweating. And on and on and on. Why? Because I remember we said that emotional pain is psychological. It is mental. And when this pain is occurring within you, then it causes other distractions in your body. So, all these things that we've mentioned, the heart racing, feeling dizzy, weakness, restlessness, nausea, lack of appetite, all these are things that are associated with emotional pain. Then what does that happen to your body? Or what does that do to your body? It causes your body to feel weak. Emotional pain brings in fear. Emotional pain brings in weakness. It makes you feel small, sensitive, vulnerable, overwhelmed. It turns you to become needy. It makes you to want to be cared for beyond what we may think of. It brings in the aspect of dependability. You stop taking care of yourself and now you turn to others. Now, when emotional pain grows, it gives birth to bitterness. When it gives birth to bitterness, what eventually happens is you become unhappy with other people. Remember, the definition is it is a pain that it's unseen, but originates from an action. Either your partner, either your parent, your boss, your sibling, your friend, something must have been done so that you can be able to go through an emotional pain. It is as a result of experiences. Now, when these experiences grow, when these experiences are multiplied, they give birth to bitterness. And bitterness is an internal self-inflicting wound that comes as a result of a response which was improper to an event that occurred. Let me explain that a little bit. When I say pain and gives birth to bitterness, bitterness again is an internal aspect. This internal aspect is self-inflicting. Why is it self-inflicting? Because I look at myself, I consider the one to be hurt, and because I'm the one who is hurt, I respond improperly to an event or an offense. In other words, I can say pain, which is emotional, depends with how I respond to my pain. So, it is not possible for us to define pain, to explain pain without going to looking at other things. Pain gives birth to emotional trauma. What is trauma? It is the damage of the mind as a result of a distressing event. Damage of the mind as a result of a distressing event. It is overwhelming stress that exceeds my ability or your ability to cope or integrate the emotions involved. For example, one of the main emotional pain that we may go through is loss and grief. And when I talk of loss and grief, I talk of so many losses. You may lose your job, you may lose a loved one, a significant other, you may lose money. So, when we are going through an emotional pain, it can be traumatic. And most of all the time, emotional pain is traumatic. And that is why I am mixing emotional pain with the trauma. It is not possible to look at emotional pain without looking at trauma. There are three types of trauma. Acute trauma, which results from a single incident. These are traumatic experiences that when I am in this painful emotion that I am through, I am able to resolve this incident because it is not prolonged. That is what we call acute trauma, which gives an emotional pain that you and me can be able to go over. Then we have the second one that we call chronic trauma. This is a repeated or a prolonged trauma. For example, domestic violence. One has been battering the other, and it has happened for more than 1 year, or for the longest as we've been staying together. Now, this chronic trauma causes an ending emotional pain, and this causes an ending bitterness. Now, I hope you're following. Emotional pain, which is traumatic, gives birth to bitterness. Then there is complex trauma. This is multiple traumatic events. For example, And these are just examples I am getting and giving just from my mind. Maybe we go or we're driving, traveling with my family, and as we get to where we're going, we get an accident. And not only do we lose our family car, maybe a life is lost. Now, that becomes multiple. And that becomes very difficult to deal with, because when we talk of multiple trauma, it is beyond one trauma. Things have happened in multiples. Now, trauma that has occurred over a long period of time gives birth to post-traumatic stress. This is shell shock, you battle fatigue, you battle other syndromes that are as a result of post-trauma. What does trauma do to you and me? It affects other aspects of my body. For example, it takes away my self-worth. When trauma hits me, I lose my safety. I lose trust. When I have lost trust, I have already lost the sense of my worth. So in a nutshell, trauma comes to increase the pain that I have been going through. Remember from the definition is that it is pain that is so unpleasant that is unpsychological, and it is pain that is non-physical. Now, when we talk of non-physical pain, we are saying the part of our body the pain did not originate from the physical aspect of us, but it is a mental pain. Now, when all this is happening, I am going and battling two issues. I am battling psychological pain. I am battling mental pain. I am battling emotional pain. And at the same time, I am going through a traumatic experience. Now, trauma in itself brings around all the things I've mentioned about loss of self-worth, meaning the value, the person that I am is taken away. Did it start initially as emotional pain? No, it started as a traumatic experience. And this is where the two are very confusing. I am willing to go slowly. Our topic is about emotional pain. But you can never have emotional pain when you do not have a traumatic experience. I hope now it's getting clearer. So when trauma comes in, before I am emotionally hurt, and I said I have a problem of H and A, so I do not mean kofia, I mean kumia, H-U-R-T. When I am emotionally in pain, it is important for us as a psychologist to look at the cause of your or my emotional pain. When I am acting and I have lost my worth, meaning my value, it's no more. Remember, each and every one of us has got a worth. That worth is defined by the value the person places on their worth. Just a simple example. I believe each and every one of us has ever gone to the shop to buy something, the price of whatever you are buying is based on the worth of the product. For them to get the value, they needed, first of all, to calculate the worth of the product so that they can place the value of the product, which is the price tag. What trauma does, it takes away your worth and you become valueless. When it takes your worth away, it takes your self-confidence. When it takes your self-confidence, it goes ahead and takes your trust. When it picks your trust, then you become vulnerable because your safety has been withdrawn. And when your safety has been withdrawn, you become vulnerable and you're left at a state of shame, at a state of dissociation. You lose intimacy. And immediately, then you become emotionally acting. You become emotionally aching. And when these things are happening to you, by and by, you are developing bitterness. Let us look at the 4R of trauma. How does trauma manifest itself? It is important for you and me to realize that trauma means care. 1R is realize the prevalence. It is very difficult for you and me to realize the prevalence of trauma if we have not gotten to the point of self-understanding. Realization occurs to the person who has got an understanding. An understanding occurs when I am aware. When I become aware, I develop another thing that is called comprehension. Now, when comprehension walks in, I am knowledgeable. So, if I am not able to realize, then I have not gotten into terms with the prevalence of my damage. I want to bring a reminder here. Sometimes emotional pain is so intense that it nubs every aspect of me that I may not realize the extent of my damage. For example, several times I have counseled people who were, if they are girls, they were molested or raped. If they were boys, they were sodomized. And my listener and my viewer, most of the time, victim of such heinous human activities are robbed of their innocence. And like I said earlier, trauma robs you of your worth. And the moment your worth has been taken away, you do not have a price tag. You do not have a value. Why you and me do not do some things that we can't do in the society? It's because I have a price, I have a value tag, and at the same time, my worth cannot afford, cannot allow me to do some things. Now, trauma of any nature be it molestation, be it rape, be it sodomy, be it domestic violence, be it cheating from partners, be it insult, be it whatever it is, loss of job. When we lose our worth, then realization cannot occur because we do not have the ability to quantify the shame. The sense of self is diminished. So, before someone asks me a question, why do some people don't understand? I have clearly explained, because trauma has already robbed them. And because they are in a nabbed situation, their pain cannot allow them to see, to realize, to be aware, to comprehend, to become, no, to realize, to be aware, to understand, to comprehend, and to be knowledgeable. Now, these 4 R's are for people who have gone through their trauma and they have healed. That is when they are able to realize. Now, when you realize, you recognize the impact of your pain. How do you recognize? You recognize by noticing, I am not worth this. And because you realize your price tag is way above this, your worth and self are not the same, now you can be able to quantify the impact. And then you can now respond. Majority of us are quick to reactions. That is disastrous. When you respond, it means you have been able to deal with the situation, and now you can look at the positive and the negative of your pain that is emotional. The moment you start responding, you are towards the end of the journey of your recovery. Then you are able to do the final R, to become resiliency, to build some stamina that is important, that is necessary to enable you to overcome the previous pain. Having said that, let us look at what emotional pain does to our body. So that when we are faced by emotional pain, it will be impossible for us not to run to doing some things that we can be able to understand and deal with our issue. Remember, I said realization occurs to someone who has been able to restore themselves back, who has gone through the process of realize, recognize, respond, and be able to become resilient. In a short moment, let me explain what it does, what pain does. When you go through an emotional pain, sometimes some of the symptoms that you need to look at to understand if you are going through emotional pain that needs help is that sometimes you may wake up and feel a lot of pain around your neck and you did not at your neck or you did not sleep badly. Before you go looking for Rob and Kalumas of this world, be able to calculate, is it about me? Am I going through an emotional pain? Then sometimes it gives birth to the pain on your shoulders, back pain, hip pain, elbow pain, pains that you cannot explain. Ujagongwa, ujaanguka, ujaumia, but you have unnecessary explainable pains that are too much to explain. It is a sign of things that might be happening to you without your knowledge. Let me put this statement. Emotional pain is so deeply rooted that sometimes it can hurt us so deeply that it will take another individual to realize that you are hurting, but you yourself is not able to realize that you are hurting. Then there is this other type of emotional pain that, yes, we know that we are in a toxic environment, and we know that we need to overcome this pain. Some people are so much entitled. Other causes of emotional pain and trauma is entitlement, having your right. These are some of the things that we need to stop. Entitlement. If I can give an example, whenever you find yourself, I've just thought of to change my example. Whenever you find yourself saying it is my right, anafaa anifanyie hivi, ni haki yangu, ni it is, you are setting yourself to unending emotional bitterness. It is important and imperative for us to look at the things we claim we have an emotional and right for them. Expectations is another dangerous cause of emotional pain. It is a statement I have always heard. Mwanaume anafaa kufanya, ni mwanamke anafaa kufanya. When you approach humanity with expectation, I cannot tell you for free that you're setting yourself for a situation that is more painful that you can ever think of. Ownership. Incorporeal ownership. When I talk of incorporeal, I talk of the intangible nature of our demands. And this I am putting to husbands and wives. There are things that are so incorporeal. There are things that in their nature we cannot touch them. There are things that as much as we claim to be ours, outrightly reality they are not supposed to be. But because we feel we own each other, we set ourselves to an ending wilderness of pain, which is emotional. Remember the question, how could he do this? How could she? It is a question that has no solution. And the end game, it's unending pain and too much bitterness. Majority of people who kill or who harm others, many times when we have domestic violence, it is because I strongly believe it is mine. I am fighting for that is which is mine. Sometimes me and you can avoid an ending emotional suffering by looking at myself first, or looking at yourself first. Remember, we said, for me to be healed, I need to understand, realize the cause of my trauma. I need to know why, how do I deal with what I am going through. Emotional pain, as I end, is one of the most difficult type of pain to heal and to deal with, because it is pain of the psychological, it is pain of the mental, it is pain that is of non-physical nature. Some of the main mental disorders are as a result of emotional pain. Some of the depressive situations that we go through are as a result of the emotional hurt that we have gone through. Sometimes it is very, very painful that we sometimes are unable to differentiate when we are hurting. And as I end, it is important for us to realize where we are at in as far as emotional pain is. Because when we notice the things I said, how does emotional pain feel like? If you catch yourself that you have been unable to sleep consistently, you can't do 6 or 7 hours nicely, consistently, without interruptions, it is time to look at the cause of your trauma. When your mind is racing, when you can't tell, how did you cross that road? When you're suddenly forgetting things, it is time for you and me to check what is traumatizing me. When you suddenly feel vulnerable, suddenly need to depend to someone, when you worry too much over nothing at all, it is time to look, what is the cause of my fear? Fear is as a result of an impending danger, threat, or an emotion. It is important for me to ask myself, what could be my trauma? My last word is, the greatest medicine for emotional pain is forgiveness. We do not forgive other people because they deserve our forgiveness. We do it because of ourselves, to get well and be able to become resilient. I repeat, we don't forgive people because they deserve. We forgive because of ourselves. Why? Because I am worth, I have a value, my self-esteem is high, and I need to get well, and I need to build resiliency. I love a statement Mandela said when he was leaving Robinson prison. And I will quote, As I walked out of the door of my prison towards the gate that would lead me to my freedom, I knew if I do not leave my bitterness and hatred behind in the prison, I would still be a prisoner. I want to ask you, are you a prisoner of your own thoughts? Are you in jail with your bitterness? Are you in jail with your hatred? It is the day today that we come to a conclusive conclusion that for you and me to heal, we need to take a pill called forgiveness. You need to drop your entitlement. You need to drop your expectations. You need to drop your validations requirement. You need to drop your incorporeal ownership state. Forgiveness is not for other people. It is for me, because I need to get well and get well faster. And I need to build my resiliency. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me. I want to believe that mitambo haikunikata, haikunitoa nje, that I have been talking for almost 35 minutes and crossing my fingers, praying and saying, God, please let them hear me, because mitambo imeleta shinda mara mingi sana. Over to you, Wamboi. I hope sikukatwa. Wamboi.
Hata mimi nilipotea kidogo. This calls for us to do a constant audit, as you're saying. You could be having body pains, strange feelings, and you need to find out what is the cause of these pains that you're carrying around. So that means we need to constantly check on ourselves that we are not carrying emotional pain unnecessarily. I have one question, though. I don't know if you have time, if you could explain to us the relationship between trust and a sense of self-worth. Maybe you can go a little bit deeper, because when we lose trust, we feel like we are protecting ourselves from people whom we are suspicious of. But now you're telling us that losing trust with other people is also a sign of low self-worth. Please expound a little bit more on that.
Thank you, Wamboi. Trust. It's a very sensitive area that most of the time we use it as a tool to gauge our relationships. I want to look at trust in a very simple way. Trust is a very huge emotional thing that we need to be careful about. It is a belief in the reliability of the other person. For example, Wamboi, I believe your child trusts you. What they have is unshakable belief that is built in many years of working together as a parent and a child, that you are not going to hurt them. Now, when pain walks in, it takes away that ability of trusting someone else. How does that happen? Trauma, which is pain, I started by saying, takes away the worth of an individual. For example, there is this question that I repeated. How could he do that? It's a very common statement that we always hear from people who are seriously hurting. How could she do this to me? After all that, now, when you hear somebody asking that question, it is because they were hurting. What has been taken away from them is their worth. Now, when you take away my worth, I said you walk into a supermarket. Below everything in the supermarket, there is a price tag. The price tag is based on the worth of the product. Now, most of the time, the society has taught us to look at the value of things without realizing the worth of the product or the thing. So everything in there is based on their worth. So if I am buying a chocolate, which I love very much, I love chocolates. So below it, I will find a price tag, 185 shillings. It is not the price that defines the chocolate. The worth of the chocolate defines the price of the chocolate. Now, what pain, which is emotional, does, remember we said emotional pain is psychological. So when I molest my child, I have already robbed their worth. They are worthless. They do not have a price tag. They don't have value placed on them. Immediately, they lose their self-esteem and confidence. When they lose their self-esteem and confidence, they have lost the individual. The self is taken away. They don't have identity, and they don't know who they are. Now, because all that is no more, they have lost trust. Trust does not come entirely by its own. It is a component of so many other things before it is trusted. Let's come to grown-ups. Wamboi, the first day I came to class, you can remember, if you recall, and our first meeting in class, our relationship as a student and as teacher and as a counselor and a client and as a friend has gone through many stages. And through this journey, trust has been built among the two of us. But can I be direct and sincere with you? First of all, your worth and our interaction was built in there. In that Wamboi, you felt there's something you're gaining from me, and I also felt there's something I'm gaining from Wamboi. It was a mutuality. And our worth was built around each other. Then your value is enhanced because your worth is there. There is the Wamboi's value and there is the Nchebere's value. And our relationship is built on the worth that we are going through together. If I do anything to the contrary, Wamboi, the value that is making you to be worth is robbed, and your trust immediately is taken away. And once you don't have trust, you are guilty, you are vulnerable, you feel ashamed, you do not have self-image, you are not safe with me any longer, you are insecure, name all the other things that follow. But trust can never be stolen as the first thing. I have first of all to steal the worth of the individual, and they become priceless. And once you become priceless, then trust is no more. It's insecurity. And now pain is built because the moment you're not worthy, you are acting, you are aching. And that is the question. How could Nchebere do this? Or vice versa, I would ask, how could Wamboi betray me this much? It is because I'm acting. And if I am not careful, I will be bitter with you. So bitterness does not start as the first instance. It is now by nurturing the pain. When I nurture the pain, that's when I become bitter. And when I become bitter, then I start saying, I want to revenge at Aniona. I hate you. And so on and so forth. I hope I answered you, Wamboi.
Yes, you have. And I'm also thinking that possibly, especially the way you described the different types of trauma, is it possible that I come to probably another relationship with all my sense of self-worth stripped, so that you're not the one that necessarily stripped me of my value, but I already come when I'm depleted. So no matter how good your intentions, or no matter how well-meaning or well-intentioned you are, I still find myself, suspicious and wondering, is this going to happen like it has happened previously, even if you're not necessarily the same person? So my next question would be, what are ways of restoring our self-worth?
Yeah, thank you, Wamboi. And now, whenever you deal with a psychological student, they are able to look at things and explain them. And sometimes I sit and I'm proud of being a good teacher who really made Wamboi know psychology and define as he is. Thank you. You have nailed it as it is. Thank you so much. Most times, people move from one relationship to the other when they're acting. I'll take an example of children. And Wamboi, you can remember in our classes, I kept on insisting looking at the background of people, because we are 60% our environment, and the greatest environment that we have lived is the families that we were born into. And most children live in families where they were robbed of their self-worth long time ago. Let me give a very simple example. Kama wewe ni msasi na unaambiaga mtoto, wewe ni mjinga kama mama yako, ama wewe ni pumbavu, afadhali ningepata ngunia kuliko wewe. What you are doing, you are stealing, robbing the child's self-worth. They will grow without an identity. And wherever they go, They will look for a person who will validate, who will repeat what their parents said, no matter how good intentioned you are. And that's why I'm agreeing with Wamboi. So the question of Wamboi is very simple. How can we overcome emotional pain? How can we realize we are suffering serious traumas, that we need help, we need to be assisted? How can we know that? One of the things that we need to do, and one of the greatest areas that this can be restored and looked at, is through therapy. I want to say this, and I am not marketing myself. I know people have got personal doctors, personal insurers, personal accountants. Maybe akona mechanic wake kwa speed dial.
Barbers. Baba
Asante. Ni kama unanijua. Uwezi enda kwa mwingine akunyoe. Unaeketingi tu na anajua shape ya kichwa yangu. Hey. Let me put this as a serious disclaimer. You need to have one of the greatest numbers. It's a psychologist number or a counselor's number. We are mental mechanics. We help people restore their sanity without medication. I am saying this confidently and proudly because I have met so many hurting children. I have met so many hurting grown-ups, and we have walked journeys that are very painful to help them restore back their self-worth, which was robbed when someone was 5 years old, maybe. And it has worked for many. One greatest painful medicine, and I have said it, is forgiveness. It is the most difficult medicine to swallow, and it is the most difficult medicine that does not react to our bodies, because we are so hurting, or somebody who we trusted so much, we had a belief of, hurt us so much. And when you tell somebody to take that pill, they ask you, how do I forgive you? How do I forgive him? How do I forgive her when he did all this to me? That is step number one. You can never realize the without, first of all, having a reconciliation with yourself. I want to repeat that. You cannot realize the prevalence of your problem, which is traumatic, without having a personal reconciliation process, an inventory of your pain. Whether it was chronic, whether it was complex, or whether it is acute, you need first of all to realize, I am acting, I am in pain, I am bitter, I hate so and so, and that is the first step towards recovery. It is not a one-day business. Some people it takes more than 3 months, and others it takes a month, and others it takes 2 or 3 weeks, and we are done. There is no physical cure that we can get for our psychological, emotional pain. Please do not confuse what I'm saying. You might have developed acute ulcers. Keep on taking your medication. You need therapy so that as you heal psychologically, then it will be easier to even address your psychosomatic disorders or problems or diseases. What do I mean by psychosomatic? More than 60% of diseases we go through are emotional, pain and hurts and aches. And because this session is not about me taking you through that journey, I only want to say some diseases we are taking to the hospital are diseases that need therapy, first of all, before we even go for medical treatment. But if you are already on medical treatment, we need to do both of them, the medical treatment and the psychological therapeutic treatment. So, one boy, yes, that is the first and the most sure way of healing emotional, psychological, mental pain that we go through for the longest. Back to you, Wamboy.
I just want to acknowledge quite a number of our audience that tuned in today. There are quite many I will not be able to pick through, but I just want to acknowledge Esther Kadzo, Sylvia Ocheno, Lynette, Matinde, Flora Kolo, Justin Kamwendia, Ruth Kihara. Thank you all for tuning in. And we have one question. Is it possible to develop neurological symptoms with emotional pain, e.g., loss of the control of urine? Is that a sign of emotional pain?
Yes, it is. And actually, yes, I will go back to children. And thank you for the person who has asked that. Mwambie kweli amesoma hizi vitu. I congratulate him or her. I will give an example with a child to support what and explain what that question is. A 14-year-old boy or girl has stopped urinating in bed. And an uncle molests them, or a teacher really who is brutal in school, or a child who is going through bullying in school, and so on and so forth. Suddenly, you realize a child has regressed, and what they are doing, they are now susuing in bed. Most of the time as parents, we scold these children. We do all manner of crude ways of stopping them from urinating. But the problem is not on the physical. The problem is mental. Now, let me tell you, emotional pain works with the frontal cortex. This is where balance, memory, stability is placed in as far as our mind is concerned. And I'm avoiding going to the scientific psychological language here. So this part of our mind, we call it the frontal cortex or the frontal lobe. Now here, there are two main things. Learning is found up here. Balance is found around here. Memory is found around here. When those areas are affected, it's one area that we call the hippocampus that is affected seriously. Now, it cannot be able to store memory, and because emotional pain is shocking, it impacts the brain with a shock that is so electrifying, and a child loses control of their bladder. Why? Because our urine is not from when you feel susu. Our urine is controlled in our mind. Our poo-pooing system is controlled in our mind. So when that area is shell-shocked, it loses its original memory, and you lose touch with your bladder. So when you are sleeping, your mind does not recognize it needs to hold the urine, or it needs to wake you up so that you can go susuing. and eventually you susu in bed. Yes, the problem is neurological. Unfortunately, sometimes the damage might be too much that you will need grown-up diapers if you are a grown man like me. However, that person needs serious long-term therapeutic journey. They need therapy so that pain can be slowly dealt with. It doesn't mean they don't need to go to the medical treatment. At that point of view, when it is serious neurological problems, it will need both therapy and medical approach, that is taking medicine. So yes, fear, anxiety, shock, pain can all lead to serious neurological imbalances. Over to you, Wambui.
Asante sana. I think you have really put it well, and especially in the case of children, that's usually a warning sign that something is not right. And I hope we have acknowledged that instead of scolding the child, we need to use that as a red flag to find out what is the root cause. I don't know if I need to let you go without telling us how to forgive. You've told us forgiveness is for ourselves, but how do we forgive? You know, some things are easier said than done. I end at 2 hivyo tu. Hivyo tu.
Wambui, forgiveness is very easy. I will go to the word. It tells me to forgive because I was forgiven.
That's
the
true.
moment, Wambui, you let me put it this way. The greatest burden we carry are the thoughts in our minds. Did you know that, Wambui? Ule mzigo mkubwa unabeba dunia hii ni mawazo kwa akili yako, my sister. For me and you to reduce the burden of my load, it's for me to start reducing my thought. Some thoughts are not necessary. Let me explain very briefly what is pain. Pain is simply, now I'm looking at my notes somewhere. Did I get that one? Sorry, it's not pain. What is bitterness? Bitterness is a complex emotion that is described as a mixture of disappointments, disgust, anger, and fear. Yes, I noticed, Wambo, you want to write that. I'll go slowly. And maybe my listener also wants to write this. And the purpose of taking you here is because of Wambo asking me the question, how can we forgive? I say bitterness, which is the mother of unforgiveness, is a complex emotion that is described as a mixture of disappointments, disgust, anger, and fear. So, forgiveness can never occur when bitterness has not been dealt with. Now, psychologically, pain should last between 15 and 20 minutes. Whatever pain it is, I know that is debatable. My student, you can see me after this so that I explain that into details. I want to say this categorically as an expert here. Any pain, whatever pain it is, should last between 15 and 20 minutes. Wamboy, I want to ask you one question. Hii uchungu umebeba miaka 10 ni ya kutoka wapi? And I'm using Wamboi as my learning tool. It means we can forgive as fast as the problem has occurred, because any painful reaction, it's only 20 minutes. So when you carry your pain more than 20 minutes, then you have a problem. What does the Bible teach me? I should not carry my anger mpaka jioni. You think they didn't know? They were pure psychologists. So if the word of God tells me so, psychology tells me my pain should not last. Psychologically, it is 20 minutes. Let me go back to children. And I love using children. My area is child and adolescent psychology. And really, I learn on a daily basis. Wamboi, wewe ni msasi kama mimi. Mara ngapi unachapa mtoto na hiyo hasira inamalizika upesi hivyo tu ulimchapa? Na kwa hapo tena, mami, daddy, why? Because they have not been taught by the society to keep, to magnify, to ruminate, to those words, to multiply the pain so that this pain becomes a burden to your head. When you don't carry the pain more than 20 minutes, Wamboi, forgiveness becomes a reality, and it becomes true, and it becomes easy to forgive. Now, why are we bitter? Why are we unable to forgive? I said pain, which is emotional, it's an emotion, which is a mixture of disappointment. Wamboi, you cannot count disappointment if you're not keeping record. Let me take this program we're having today. How many times have I failed you, Wamboi, and how many times have you failed me? So if we kept a record of the wrongs, Wamboi, I could not have sat here today to do this program. You could also have not sat with me today, and maybe Pala and everyone else. Now, we pick the disappointment, we keep a record, they become bitterness. When now we keep that record of disappointment, you start getting disgusted. When disgust walks in, hatred is born. When hatred comes in, you become angry. Ile ya A-N-G, anger. Unakuwa na makasiriko. And when all this is happening, you are giving a chance of forgiveness no opportunity. I keep asking my clients, shinda ya jana, mbona unaileta kwa shinda ya leo? Shinda ya jana ilikuwa ya jana. Jana you caught me with a different lady. Mbona leo uongei na mimi na jana nilisema sorry? Why are you punishing me for the sins of yesterday? When you keep these feelings, when you ruminate on them like an animal, unajua iko na tumbo ine, unaitoa from this stomach to the next stomach to the next stomach. By the time it is on the fourth stomach, it is a problem that is so huge. So the Bible tells me I should not carry my anger up to sunset. Psychology, which is the world I live in and I love most, tells me any pain, it's only 20 minutes. And I know some people are listening so that they look for fault. Cancer pain is different pain. That will need a higher dose of painkillers for it to be removed. I'm not talking about that pain. I am talking about psychological pain. This is a different pain. Any psychological pain should last 20 minutes at most. If that is the case, then you have no room for bitterness. You have no room for entitlement. You have no room for ownership. And then forgiveness becomes very easy because you have not kept numbers of disappointment. Alinifanyia hivi the first day we married, alinikon. You have a list of pain. No, never keep that. And lastly, that is why the Bible says the kingdom of God is just like for the children, because they do not have a place to keep bitterness. They do not have a place to keep unforgiveness. They do not have a place to keep the number of times you wronged me. Back to you, boy.
I want to support what you're saying in 1 Corinthians 13, where it describes love. We are told not to keep a record of wrongdoings, and we should also not find fault with our neighbors and all. And like you're saying, the kingdom of heaven is for children, because children forgive and forget very quickly. And mine is just to thank you so much. There are some more comments, but people just acknowledging that this topic was very relevant. Maggie is saying she was taking notes, and that it was very relevant today. And we are hoping we will have you on another episode as God plans, so that we can further delve into these things. And I like that psychology is also in the Bible. The Bible is a very psychological book, and if we just follow those simple instructions, then our life is better. We are way past our time, so I'm just going to request that we end the show. And thank you so much for coming and for not despite the many challenges that we had, finally we had the show, and I'm so happy that it has finally happened. Asante sana.
Thank you too, Wambui.
Yeah.